6:30. I will call to order the Monday, February 13th, 2023 edition of the Committee of the Whole meeting. We will start with the roll call.
Michael Murray.
Here.
Adam Gigas.
Here.
Richard Yearington.
Present.
Sean Zabinski.
Here.
John Glenn.
Here.
Mitchell Kale.
Here.
Lamont Kiefer.
Here.
Nellie Pater. Here. Dan Peterson.
Here.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes section for agenda item 1, approval of minutes from January 16th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Sean and a second by Nellie. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I have been reminded, make sure you use your microphones tonight because we have 2 people online. I forgot to say that at the top, so just catching it now. Moving on to the report section, we'll go to the city clerk with agenda item 2, city clerk monthly report.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So just a few updates from the clerk's office. We are in full election mode as we have an election on the 21st of this month, which is why we moved the meeting to this week. So thank you for being flexible. One thing on my report here, my written report there, is I put that the public test is scheduled for February 14th. That's tomorrow. It's actually February 15th. It's Wednesday the 15th at 11 o'clock a.m. And that's been published my report had a typo in there, so just to let you know. We've had quite a few absentee ballots already. I mean, as I wrote this report, it was on February 6th. We already had 213. I think we're up to somewhere around 250. So we actually had quite a bigger turnout for the primary than I had anticipated, but we're all set up to go for the 21st. We're going to have 11 poll workers, so significantly less than we had in November, and that'll be polls open at 7 a.m. So just a reminder, we've already been into the city's nursing care facilities to assist voters who are not able to leave those facilities. We do have quite a bit of large public records requests that we're working on right now, in addition to the election steps. So once that's all done, we'll get through the spring election, which will be significantly busy, and then for the rest of the year, we're really going to focus on training. We've got our new part-time deputy clerk. She's working great. She's doing a fantastic job. She's great with customers, but we want to get her a little more formalized training, and then we've got the year 2 for me for the UW Green Bay, and year 1 for Nikki, our full-time deputy. So we'll be busy with training and stuff after that, but we're going to try and get all that stuff in this year because 24 will be a big year since it'll be a presidential election, and that will be a big focus for a majority of the year for all elections. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have one question regarding the upcoming election for council. What do we have for any contested races?
For the local races, no, we do not have any contested races. Everyone is running unopposed at this time. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Moving on to the report for building inspection and code enforcement, we have agenda item 3, January building permit report, code enforcement report, and annual building permit report. Shane.
Occasionally still gets the complaints on sidewalk, snow removal. Obviously this time of the year is not the busiest time for actual issuing of building permits. There's still a lot of active projects going on, but not a lot of issuance of new permits. And then I followed that up with the annual permit total. And as you can see from 2021 to 2022, there's quite a drop off in both volume of permits, permit fees, and project value. I still think there's probably, as everyone's aware, there's several factors that I think are working into this. Interest rates, material cost, just the cost of a standard 2,000 square foot home is nearly doubled in a couple of years here. Concrete costs have doubled. So I think going into 2023, we're probably going to see people kind of holding off, maybe waiting for some of the interest rates to come down before they initiate some of their construction projects. And as far as perspective development, in February, Plan Commission meeting, we'll have a site plan review for the next Bird 51 unit apartment building He's gonna be moving dirt in mid-March is what he's hoping for, and then he's gonna follow that one up. I'm not sure if it's gonna be in the same calendar year, but as soon as he gets that one done, he's gonna put the last one up there. Same 51 unit underground parking on that site just north of Deer Creek Dental.
So how many units is that planned to be?
There's room for 2 more, Richard, so he's gonna put up 2 more there, south of Larkin Street there. So that's what he's got room for, so that's what his
Recording in
intent
progress.
is. But- And I'll have Casey's gonna provide a year-end summary next month of, for code enforcement. It'll be the first one of those, so.
All right, any questions for Shane?
Just a comment in regards to, have you noticed the garage with the collapsed roof on the alley behind the Family Dollar?
No. I'll put that on my schedule, take a look at that, Richard. Right behind the Family Dollar, the one on the
Yeah.
corner?
Yeah, and on the alley.
Okay, I'm familiar with the property, but I wasn't sure if that's the one you were speaking on.
I think it's
Thank you, I'll take a look at that.
to the south.
All right, any other things for Shane here?
I think it-
All right, thank you, Shane.
it's the wrong wall.
We don't need one for the revenues and expenditures for Chris's budget? All right, great. We will move on then to Public Works and Utilities for agenda item 7, Public Works and Utilities Director Report. Kirk.
Good evening. When I wrote this, we had received 1 dump truck. We did actually receive the other quad axle on Friday. Very nice machine, and we'll put that into use here shortly. We did some clearing of trees near the airport. That was in our audit with the Bureau of Aeronautics. And we are concentrating back when it was a bitter cold on our training safety videos, trying to stay inside and utilize that time in front of the screen and keep out of the cold weather. We also are working on a project to outfit a trailer with signs, cones, various traffic control features to help us better facilitate closures, primarily the downtown Tacoma events, parades, all those various things that we encounter throughout the year. Sewer department, everything's normal there. Submittals for the new equipment are starting to come in, and engineers are going through that. Water department, similar. We did have 1 leak on Lincoln Street, and that was fixed by Gerke Excavating, and it was on our side, so we are responsible for those repairs. Lake Committee, I know they had a fishery, and it sounded like they had a pretty good turnout. And their next meeting is scheduled for March 16th at 5 o'clock. Otherwise, I'll take any questions. Richard?
Now on CA, what's your plans out there as far as I noticed the erosion fences and heavy equipment out there, and the equipment's gone again?
Yeah, we had contracted with Gerke Excavating to open that up as our mine. We have the permitting through the county with the DNR. All of our permits are in place. And so that is basically an active mine. We are intending to use that as potential incentives to anybody that comes and wants TID money. Most places around here need fill, so we would work out an agreement with those companies, not only for individuals that are looking to relocate here, but for our own use. Good example would be Flair Avenue Complex. And the long-term plan is to take that hill down and create a area for development for industrial use. Anything else?
Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the police department, we have agenda item number 8, January 2023 Police Department Monthly Report. Chief.
Good evening, everywhere.
Evening.
I have a very short agenda tonight. Just give you some updates on some staffing. So Audra Gomez is now done with field training, so she is now assigned to third shift patrol, night shift patrol, doing a great job. Ethan Pedersen, our recruit, is in the second week of the academy now, so he'll be graduating in June of this year. We move forward with our promotion, so Delaney Hanran has been promoted to sergeant. I believe, as far as my knowledge goes, she's the first female supervisor that we've ever had in our department, so I think that's pretty cool. I wanted to get Delaney up here, so if those of you who don't know her, she works with Audra, and I don't think you guys may not know her either, but they're off tonight, so once their rotations come around where they're going to be on duty and whatever, I'll bring that crew up here so you guys can meet them. Still low on applicants, so I met with the Police and Fire Commission. I think it was 2 weeks ago. They approved me to move forward. I'm gonna meet with the Sparta Police Department and the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, actually this Thursday, and we're gonna discuss having a joint hiring process, where all three agencies would pool all their applicants together and have one process. The goal is it'll give us more bodies to take a look at, and then the area applicants would only have to go through one process instead of a process for Toma, Sparta, Monroe County. Just trying to think outside the box and do the best that we can with attracting more quality applicants. So we'll see how that goes. If it works, fantastic. If not, we'll revert back to what we have been doing. Our Canine Golf outing, I gave you everybody a date in June that has been moved back. So the final date now for our Canine Fundraiser Golf outing at Hiawatha is going to be July 21st of this year. And lastly, our front office is going to be closed on President's Day, so Monday the President's Day. Officers will be on duty, of course, but there'll be no front office staff. Any questions at all for me? Okay, thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the general section of the agenda. We have agenda item 9, ordinance revising ordinance section 38, streets, sidewalks, and other public places, second reading.
I noticed an error in it, in the publication on 38, on page 33 of our agenda board here. It reads, to keep. I move that we amend it by striking one of the two keeps. It's on 3880, second page of the description. About halfway through it.
3880, you said? Oh, yep, so the city shall keep a record, right underneath that green box there.
Yep.
The page, top of page 91 of the overall agenda. All right, so you move to strike
Strike one of the
the
two keeps.
redundancy?
Yeah.
All right.
Can we do the second one?
Do you want to? All right, I have a motion by Richard to strike that,
I'll second.
and a second by Sean.
Good catch.
Any further discussion on this item besides the? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 10, secondhand article dealer license application for Sunshine Resale of Toma.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Lamont, a second by Sean. Any discussion?
What exactly are they permit for? What are they gonna be selling?
They're going to be selling secondhand clothing, like a resale shop,
Kinda like a,
thrift store.
okay.
Good question. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 11, special event outdoor cabaret license for the Greater Toma Area Chamber of Commerce for the 800 and 900 blocks of Superior Avenue for 6 downtown Thursday nights concert events in July and August of 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Richard and a second by John. Any discussion?
I have one. This map, there's a good map of the locations of where everybody's gonna be. So I like that. Where'd this come from?
Well, it's the past one, it's not, is it?
Right, that's the one from last year because they don't know exactly who's gonna be where, but it gives you a really good indication. The chamber creates that.
Good
When they
job.
submit
Good
their-
job.
Yeah.
I like it.
They also, if you get really bored, you can check out the sidewalk the day of and they mark all the lines out and
Yep.
who's gonna be there, so. They do a great job at the chamber with that. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 12, special beer application by Families First of Monroe County Trivia Night on March 11th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Mitch, we do a motion by Mitch, second by Nellie. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 13, special beer and wine permit application by Toma Baseball Club Incorporated, opening night on March 4th, 2023.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Dean and a second by Mitch. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 14, special beer permit application for the Toma Lions Club for downtown Thursday nights in July and August of 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Sean and a second by John. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries with one abstention. Agenda item 15, resolution for payment of monthly bills.
Motion
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Dean and a second by Sean. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Dean and a second by Mitch. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
As of 6:48, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. All right, the time
Recording in
is
progress.
6:32. I will call to order the Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 edition of the Common Council meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a quick reminder, make sure you use your microphone. We've got Shane online, and it's better for the recording, I think, if we all use the microphones. We will move on to the roll call.
Adam Gigas,
Here.
Michael Murray, Richard Arrington,
Present.
Sean Zabinski,
Here.
John Glenn,
Here.
Mitchell Kale,
Here.
Lamont Kiefer,
Here.
Nellie Painter, Dean Peterson.
Here. All right, so you want to do the... All right, so we'll move on to agenda item A here, the resolution in recognition of honor to William H. Kobleska Jr. for service to the city of Toma. Whereas on March 2nd, 1981, William H. Kobleska Jr. began his 41 years of service to the city of Toma. He started as a sanitation operator for Public Works, became a truck driver in 1986, a water maintenance worker in 1989, an equipment operator in August of 1994. And whereas, in August of 2008, Bill was promoted from equipment operator to the position of foreman for the Public Works Department. In June of 2013, the foreman position was abolished for the creation of the Public Works Supervisor, which Mr. Kableska was held until his retirement. And whereas, one highlight from Bill's City of Toma career includes a certificate of appreciation from the Public Works and Utilities Commission for 15 years of dedicated service in the city in February of 1996. And whereas, he has distinguished himself with his knowledge of various operations and a willingness to learn new skills and apply them to his job, Mr. Kableska was often complimented on his ability to listen to instructions and complete top-quality work. And whereas, Bill was always willing to work with the public in a courteous manner, handle difficult situations appropriately, and he never let personal matters affect his work. And whereas, his colleagues knew him as a dependable, responsible, clean, and safe coworker who never complained about new assignments, had a positive attitude which helped curb others' negativism, and always worked well with others. Now therefore be it resolved that Mayor Michael Murray, City of Toma, does hereby express his sincere appreciation and gratitude for Mr. Kableska's dedication and commitment to the city, and congratulate him on the occasion of his retirement from the City of Toma, and wish him the best and continued success in his retirement and future endeavors. Dated this, the 17th day of January, 2023.
I'll just say for Bill, he appreciates the recognition. When we scheduled this, he failed to realize that it was Valentine's Day. And I think missing a lot of events through his life, he's kind of turned a new page, and he's going to spend that with his wife tonight, and that's why he's not here.
I should give him a round of applause anyway, right? And you made the right decision not showing up, huh? Move, second? To, all right, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Make a motion to approve the
Second.
resolution.
I got a motion by Mitch and a second by Lamont. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to anyone desiring to appear before council. We have the discussion and presentation by NASA of potential teach center in the City of Toma. Dave.
First of all, happy Valentine's Day to all of you, and especially to Shane if you're watching. Worked with him a little bit, send that out to him. I spent some time on the Toma School Board, so I know how much time you spend in meetings, and I'm going to try to be respectful of that. So I'm going to do a delicate dance tonight of trying to give you enough information about our proposal, but I also don't want to bog you down in details. So my plan is to give you a brief synopsis of our proposal, and then if you have some questions, I can certainly handle any of those that would relate to NASA or the fundraising. And if you have any relating to Breathe, there's some representatives of this whole people here in blue, the executive director, Chris Singer, and President Ed, and Becky and Martha are certified path instructors, and they could certainly address some of those questions better than I. I know you all received an electronic proposal, but I'm going to give you a hard copy because I still like a newspaper.
Showing your age, Dave.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you.
All that good stuff together.
I still got mine.
And you got yours,
Yeah,
good.
save it.
There, does anybody else want one? Okay, so basically the proposal that we're asking of the Toma City Council is to designate a piece of property as a new park. Approximately 30 acres would suffice for what our plans are. And there's logistical reasons for designating it as a new park. Mainly it opens up some grant opportunities for us for fundraising because there's a lot of grant money available for new parks. And then there's a whole separate category for horse therapy. So we could really double down if it's a park. The city would always retain the property. We're not asking for ownership. It's gonna remain as City of Toma property. And even if we can't raise the money, it's still gonna stay yours, and then you would have the idea of whether you wanna keep it as a park or not, if we would somehow fall short. But the idea would be to designate this as a park. And then we are not asking the city for any financial commitment or taxpayers to commit any money. NASA would take the full responsibility of fundraising for a multi-use equine assisted therapy center, or as it says on your packet, the Teach Center, which is therapy empowers adults and children through horses. So we would then raise the funds or raise the money for it, and then we would build the center on the piece of property that you would designate. And then just like we did with the inclusive park, we would hold a dedication ceremony and dedicate it back to the City of Toma. So we would hand over a $2 million plus building back to the city, and it would be yours. Now, there's a whole host of questions I know that go along with that, with operating and so forth, and I think I've tried to address most of those. But that, in a sense, is the proposal. And I believe it's on page 1 or 2. There's some limitations there regarding that proposal as to, you know, if we don't raise the money, it goes back to you, so on and so forth, and you can read all of those. So then I thought the second part of that, that's the proposal. Now I should answer the W's for you, like the who, what, where, when, and why. So the who is, of course, the City of Toma and probably Parks and Recs Department, because if you're going to designate it as a new park, Joe and his department would obviously have their fingers involved in it. And it would also be NASA. Those would be the two big who's, us as the fundraising agent and you as the owner of the property. Beyond that, there's been some other interest. Breathe, which is the Baraboo River Equine Assisted Therapy Center out of Lake Delton. They're running a very successful program down there right now. They serve clients from 6 different counties. They have a waiting list. A lot of those clients drive from an hour away or more, and they're out of room. They want to expand. Their program's very successful, and they've expressed interest in moving to Toma and being a potential renter of the facility. So their program currently runs 5 days a week, so there would be rental opportunities outside of that program. And as large of the facility as we're talking about, there'll be rental opportunities even if they're running their programs, because there's going to be a lot of different areas, and if they're not using them, you might as well rent them out. So they're part of the who. The Toma Area School District, I met with them last week, and they are very interested. They are not ready to commit because they also would have to go to their school board, and they're not going to do that until they know that there's a place that this is going to go and that we're going to move forward. But they're very excited about it in terms of the facts of all the populations it would serve for them. The Toma High School rodeo team, the FFA, agriculture classes, school to work programs, LD students, ED students, class field trips, farm to table. There's a whole host of things that they would use for their curriculum. And of course, they wouldn't be the only school, but I'm only concerned about them because they're here. But so they would be a who. The Veterans Administration Hospital has a person on staff who's an equine assisted therapy person. I don't know where they're holding their program now, if they are, but Tina Thompson informed me that the VA now leads the nation in non-prescriptive therapy. So it would make huge sense that they would want to get involved with a facility like this, because there's some proven techniques for PTSD and different injuries and so forth that they could take advantage of. And so those would be, I would think the main stakeholders we're talking about. But beyond that, there's a whole host of a lot of others we could talk about. Everything from the Boy Scouts who have a horsemanship badge to conventions and business meetings and I know that all colleges now do an RA training program. I think that the facility would be booked for 3 weeks in August every year to do training for their RAs, who are the resident assistants. And like I said, we're just talking about the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole lot of groups that I think could express interest, but it's hard to say who those are because we haven't reached out to them without knowing anything more. So that's the who. The what is a state-of-the-art equine-assisted therapy center, and it would consist of an indoor riding arena, at least 80 feet wide by 200 feet long. It would be heated with a dirt floor and 16-foot sidewalls. We would also have in the center of the facility a classroom area that would have accessible bathrooms off of it, a commercial kitchen, a mechanical room, and some office space. And then on the far end of the structure would be the barn with at least 13 stables, storage above, and possibly a barn manager apartment above as well. The whole thing itself would be longer than a football field, just to give you an idea of the size of the facility we're talking about. It's big. And yet in the preliminary experiences I've had since we met with the Parks Board, I'm worried we're not building it big enough, but we can get to that later. So that's the who and the what. The where, again, would be on some city property. There's a couple of different parcels that we've looked at, but again, it would be up to you. One is off of County Highway CA, just past the TAMS building. It's 31 point some acres. I think Kirk said the city has owned it since 1980, so you've owned the property for a long time. There's a hayfield there now, and it would be a perfect location for the Teach Center because of its proximity to the interstate, and also it's out rural areas where you're going to have to get rid of some manure and some other things like that. There's also a lot of land next to that that could be accessed for riding trails and mountain bike trails and so forth. And it would also be large enough for a small camping area. There's also a piece of parcel behind the Toro headquarters and kind of behind Milestone Materials, but I don't know if you have an access or an easement, to that property, but there's about 30 acres there. And I know there's a couple others, but those were the couple that caught our attention. When we met with the tourism board this morning, one of the members on that suggested that this belongs as close to the Monroe County Ag Center campground as possible. And I couldn't disagree, because I know the campground could be used a whole lot more than it's being used now. And this facility would also be very conducive to camping. But I think that would involve purchasing property. And again, we're trying to do this with no cost to the city. So, but it is something as you deliberate to consider where the best location would be. I know that with the Monroe County Fair there, having an indoor riding arena nearby would also have, some definite benefits. So that's the who, what, and where. The when would be as soon as we could raise the money. I know that experience has shown us that we're not going to need to raise the $2 million. Our park that we raised money for down in Butts Park was almost $800,000, and we didn't even need to raise half of that in capital. All the rest was donated by materials and money and labor. So I don't expect that we're going to need $2 million in capital. If our experience here and the businesses in town are any indication. I still think we're looking at least 2 years to raise that kind of money. So it's an endeavor to move forward with this without a doubt. So that's the when, and then the how. It would be, there's a whole lot of whys, by the way, and I know these folks can tell you success stories about all the people they're serving, and I've heard a few myself. But the how is, I would suggest that if you would approve the designation of a new park for Tomah, and you would give NASA the green light to start fundraising, then I would suggest that we would need to set up a planning committee or commission, and I would welcome you to tell me who you would want to see sit on there. I would hope a member of NASA would be there. Somebody from Breathe or a horse-related facility should be there. The city representatives, parks, so on. And I would say that planning commission would spend the next couple of years while we're raising the money, working out all of those individual details that are gonna need to be worked out. Because one of the questions I got asked this morning is, how much would you rent this for? And I said, well, I really have no idea, but if you would look at, there are at least a dozen other publicly owned equestrian centers in the United States. One is really close by in Iowa, and they rent their facility for $900 a day, which I think is really, really low, but I also haven't seen the facility. So if it's fairly small, you know, it might not be anything. So my point would be that the committee, that planning committee, would reach out to these other communities that are already doing this, and we don't need to reinvent anything brand new. We would be able to reach out to their executive directors or their facility managers and say, how are you running this, and how is the city or county, in some cases it's the county, how are they paying for this, and what would be the best operating scenario for us, how it would fit into what we would want to do. So, and there would be a whole host of other things that committee would need to solve, I get that. So that's really kind of the who, what, where, when, and how, and kind of the synopsis of the proposal. And I guess at this point, I'm gonna just let you bombard me with questions, or breathe.
We're good to ask questions, right? Because it was on the
Oh,
agenda.
wait, before I do that, I should also say, after meeting with the tourism board, they were in support of moving forward with the project. So there's some definite economic impact to the area. I think you draw from all over western Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota for this facility.
Did you want to touch on PATH a little bit?
Sure. PATH is, and I'll do my best and you guys correct me, because I've learned a lot about horses in the last year. And this has been about a year, by the way, in the making of us. I'll just backtrack a second and say that we didn't start off with a brand new facility at all. We started off by trying to use an existing facility in and around Toma. We even looked at private facilities, and through the course of a lot of weird things taking place and getting the rodeo involved in all of that, a light bulb finally came on and said, you know, we need a new facility that will address the issues for all the different variety of groups and organizations that would want to use it. So with that, PATH is the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship. They're an international organization. You need to be certified to be a PATH instructor, and these two ladies are, along with some other certifications. So they would bring certified instructors and a proven program with them to Toma. And the other thing about that is we would want our facility to be accredited and approved by PATH, because if we do that, again, an international organization, they will hold conferences and trainings here as well. So that would be another rental potential and hotel generation, you know, revenue and so forth. So did I do okay on that? Or the PATH, I know they have a proven curriculum and certain techniques, and like I said, I learned a lot. Like every time they take a rider out, there needs to be, I believe, a person on each side of the horse, because they take care of the rider in the event something happens to them, and then there needs to be a person who takes care of the horse in front. So there's 3 volunteers, or an instructor and 2 volunteers, every time they take somebody out. And then I also want to mention that everything doesn't involve riding. There's a whole nother host of things that you can do with autistic kids and PTSD patients, just touching, grooming, and leading the horse around. That has phenomenal results. So I think that's, unless you guys want to add anything about PATH, did I do okay?
You're great.
Anything else? I want to address the construction estimates that are in there too, that are in your packet. I did my very best. I've had to put it together in 2 weeks, so I'm not going to lie to you, it was a little bit of a rush, but the actual facility cost, the structure costs, came from a building that All American is building right now. It's 70 by 140. So I met with them, and we took the square foot cost of that structure and then expanded it out to the square foot of our structure, and then added 20%. And I'm going to tell you that if anybody's been involved in construction lately, they just upped concrete again, and private individuals can't even buy concrete. So 2 years from now, who knows what will be going on. But my concrete estimate is in there for, at the new upped price of, I think it's $200 a yard right now. So it's really, really expensive. So I will tell you, all of those are based on best guesses, or, like I said, meeting with people and talking to them about it. I've also been in contact with Ernie Tourville, who was the architect for the chamber building, and he is very excited about wanting to be part of this. He said he's designed riding arenas, he's designed classrooms, and he's designed barns, but never all together. So he said it'd be really fun to do. But, and we would need him to draw up the set of construction prints that we could then take and get some hard construction figures on. And we obviously don't want to employ him yet because there's going to be some significant dollars there. Again, NASA would take care of that.
Fantastic.
So Dave, what is the minimum amount of acres that you would think you need for this facility?
The minimum amount of acres?
Yeah.
Well, we went out, the Toma Saddle Club, yeah, that's what, they're on about 7 acres, and we went out and toured that, and we couldn't even fit half of what we need on there. So, I mean, the minimum amount, I would throw a number at the wall and say 20 acres at least. I would like to see us go bigger if possible, because the barn will be constructed in a way that we could add additional stalls. And there was a gentleman at the planning session, or the tourism session this morning, who asked me, he said, do you have any idea what it costs to board a horse a month? And I said, no, I have no idea. And he said, it's $1,000. And I said, huh? And he goes, and that doesn't include grain or food or vet or anything. That's just the house. And he said, put 10 more stalls on your barn and have the city or your facility manager, or a combination of Breathe and the city, you rent those out to private individuals. If you had 10 of them, 10 grand, 120 grand a year, you could pay your facilities director and still have money left over. So there's a huge amount of opportunities, I think. Again, we're spitballing, but without knowing if there's any legs to this, I think we've done the best we can with a proposal at this point.
I like that.
Do you have some acreage in mind, Mr. Kale?
I have been thinking.
Okay,
I will continue to think.
awesome.
Maybe call you tomorrow.
I wanted to back up a minute to that planning commission or committee or team or whatever you want to call it. I would also suggest that we would schedule some field trips, and NASA happens to have a big bus that we could take, but like Rawhide just purchased a facility over in Fond du Lac, and they're also full and packed, and it's bigger than what Breathe is running, and they're drawing school districts from Green Bay all the way to Milwaukee, and they're full. And in fact, the lady I talked to said, we're looking at expanding, so let me know where you're building. I'm like, well, you're not getting our place, but so it's very popular. A lot of the programs that you look at, especially the therapy ones, and again, I want to clarify that there are some public facilities out there, they're just riding centers. You know, they just have places, they rent stalls to people, and they're not doing the therapy portion of it. And I think that's what we're most interested in, obviously, is serving a lot of people with this, not just doing it for recreation. And yet at the same time, it can still be used for that, for the recreation of. One of the ladies on the park board said her horse just got injured and she needed to exercise it, and she goes, where do you do that when it's 10 below in Wisconsin? Well, you could have an open riding time, rent it out for an hour, a couple hours, and I think you'd have a lot of people interested, and especially with the way our weather is here. So,
I have a question for the therapy people.
Yes.
You've got a present facility in Baraboo. Are you planning on keeping that facility along with this one here, moving your headquarters here? With some of your clients from further to the south, it's gonna make it quite a long trip.
Do you want to answer that or you want?
Come up podium.
Yeah.
Come on up and speak into the microphone.
We don't bite.
So I'm Chris Singer, I'm the executive director, and we don't know yet. It would depend on if we had the people down there to support it, to run it. So we would need to have, I mean, that kind of has yet to be decided as far as whether we split Breathe into 2 locations or whether we move Breathe up here. I know there are folks in Baraboo who don't really want to see it go away, but then again, at the same time, we would have to determine at that point whether we had the staff to support both places, as this would be the main campus, and then the Baraboo location would be a secondary campus if we did it that way. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat,
Somewhat?
because I'd hate to see the clients that you got in the southern part of the state lose out
Right,
of the,
right, because
benefits.
we're drawing from as far south as Dane County right now, the Madison area, the northern Madison area, as well as Green Lake and Columbia County, so, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about, I'm cheating a little bit because I heard about some of it this morning. You know, Dave mentioned kind of how much acreage you're looking for. Can you kind of talk a bit about the facility you have now and why the space requirements kind of are what they are?
So what we have right now is, it's an older farm where most of the property that had originally belonged to the farm was sold off, and 5.3 acres remained. Much of that is front yard area that we don't use for the horses at all. And then there are 2 residences on the property that are rental homes. And then the back barn area really only gives us about 3 acres total for 12 horses. So we have 4 very small stalls that we can utilize inside the main barn. We have a small 50 by 50 indoor arena, and we have, it's probably about a 70 by 40 outdoor arena. So everything is scaled very small with our riders. We don't have usually more than 2 riders at a time just because of the small size. But with PATH, it's possible to have 4 to 5 riders at a time in a class. So we're kind of missing out on that opportunity to take care of more riders at once, simply because we don't have the room for the horses to all move around at once. And then as far as shelters and housing, there are 3 main paddocks, outdoor areas that we can turn the horses out for a minimum amount of time during the day, and that's simply to avoid overgrazing. And then kind of a stockyard area with some good-sized stalls that they live in on a day-to-day basis, which are outside, and in weather like this, it's rain and ice and mud that they live in most of the time. So it's not the ideal property for horses, but it's right now it's the best we've got for what we're doing.
How much of a waiting list is there for?
So we've had a waiting list, an active waiting list for the past 4 years, and as people come into the program, once they're in a slot, they get to keep that spot until they decide not to renew anymore, and then they go back to the waiting list if they want to come back. I'm starting this year's waiting list with about 20 kids on it, and I've got about 20 kids that are definitely returning from last year. Everybody else is on the waiting list until I find what spots I have available. A lot of it also depends on availability of volunteers, because as you heard earlier, we need 2 to 3 volunteers for every rider, unless they're more advanced riders and they don't need sidewalkers. So once I get my volunteers signed up and scheduled, then I can schedule students, and that usually doesn't happen until about 2 weeks out from when we're ready to start. We start this year at the end of March down there.
So with the With what the facilities that David kind of mentioned that they're looking at, how many riders, assuming you had all the volunteers and all that, how many riders could you have going at one time?
When Fond du Lac, 3 of us actually trained for our certification at the center in Fond du Lac. They were working with 80 riders a week. There's centers that are larger than that who are taking in 200 a week in the more populated areas that we know of for sure. I worked with a center in Southern California, and of course, you know, they've got the population base to support that kind of activity too as well, but they actually run 200 riders a week through there.
I think the question was, what would this facility handle?
With the facility that's being proposed, I don't see why you couldn't run 80 a week.
And you operate out of Baraboo Lake Delton.
Yes.
What's been the impact of having this facility for the community?
I don't know, I'm not sure what you mean by impact, but do you want to hear success stories or?
Yeah, well, yeah, anything like,
Okay.
I mean, clearly you said you, the community would be sad to see you go, so
Right.
you've had some impact, right? Like the community
Right.
sees it as a point of
So
pride.
for
that they have it
for
there.
my parents of autistic children, I've heard it over and over again that there's nothing here for us. There's nothing that they don't offer anything for kids on the autism spectrum. And this is one of the only things that there is for them to do. So I know there is a swimming program now down there that a lot of the kids are also involved in. But they can't play soccer, they can't play baseball. They're not involved in team sports. They don't belong riding their bikes in the cul-de-sac because they have the social challenges as well. This is something that they can come to every week and feel that they belong. They've got a support team. They usually are working with the same group of support facilitators every week when they go, so they get to know them. They learn social interaction skills as well as they learn that it's good for their self-confidence. It's empowering for them because they're learning how to control a 1,200-pound animal. A lot of these kids, the only activities they get is they go from school to therapy, to home, and then bed. And so when they get to go from school to horseback riding and then go have dinner, and my parents tell me that they're more regulated when they're done, and they'll stay that way for 2 or 3 days. Some of my riders with physical challenges, there's one young man who struggles with cerebral palsy, and his legs are very bent, but when he gets off the horse, he's straight. He's got straight legs, and he's taller, and and that'll last for 2 to 3 days. He's one of my riders who he started riding with us when he was 14, and down at the Weisman Center at UW-Madison, the physicians were warning his parents from the time he was 10 years old that when he turns 15, he's going to need this surgery on his heels to cut his heel cords, and in order for him to continue to grow, and he's going to be in a wheelchair for a year. And his parents were not looking forward to this because he's a very strong-willed, strong young man. So he started riding with us when he was 14. When he was 15, he showed up for lessons one day. He was all smiles, and he said, "I don't have to have surgery." The doctor said, "Just keep riding those horses because this is why I don't have to have surgery." So that was a big win for us, as you can imagine.
That's awesome.
So in these stories, who's funding? Is there insurance? Is there families?
Mm-hmm.
Is there foundation money, grant money? Who
Um,
funds all of this, and what kind
All
of
of the
funding does it
above.
take?
So we do charge a fee. A lot of families pay, I shouldn't even say a lot, some families pay out of pocket. A lot of our families now are covered under the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program. And so that's covered. It's a state-funded program that is run through the counties. So the counties actually receive payment from the counties. The CCS program also, and that's a Medicaid-funded program. And we've contracted with many counties through the CCS program. We apply for grants when we can, when they're available. The problem with grants is most grants don't support operational funding. It has to be project or program specific, so that's always a challenge, writing grants, because it doesn't pay for hay, and it doesn't pay for grain, and it doesn't pay for salaries, and those are the things we need most. So we are able to get grant funding sometimes. We have some fundraisers throughout the year that bring in money. We have a golf outing in August. That is our biggest fundraiser. We also send teams up to the Packers game in the winter time, and we work a concession stand up there, and that usually gets us through the winter when we're not collecting fees and such. So there's a lot of different income streams. Any other questions?
I'm gonna just stay right here. I just wanted to jump, you asked about an impact, and when we went down and toured their facility, one of the things that I found very interesting is there's a mall, a small mall near Breathe, and we went there and had some coffee, and I believe a retail store in there gave you space, is that correct? To sell tack?
Mm-hmm.
So they gave them retail space in the Dells, and they sell horse tack and clothing and so forth. And that's another stream that does, pretty well. But I just thought it was interesting because you asked about the impact. Well, there's somebody who wants to help, and they're literally giving up part of their store to help these guys run their program.
It's a point of pride for
Yeah.
the area.
Right.
Do you know of any particular people that do come and stay overnight, or their overnight stays? Actual ones that you know, not just guessing that people,
I don't know of any right now. No, I don't.
most people, it's just a day trip,
Mhm.
to your knowledge,
Right,
for their students.
right.
But you're not running conventions and meetings and.
Right, we don't have
all
the
that.
facility to offer workshops or clinics or anything like that, yeah.
And you'd want to start that with this facility?
With a facility like this, you could definitely do that, and I think there would be interest in doing that. We had a small clinic with a horse trainer. We had a horse trainer come in and offered, to the public for people to come in and watch him, and there was a lot of interest for that. And in our little tiny arena, we managed to get some chairs in there, and it was very successful for us.
As we're learning, horse owners are very enthusiastic about their hobby.
Yes.
Incredibly enthusiastic.
What kind of office staff do you have to collect that money? Because obviously, when there's insurance companies and government agencies and all these kind of people, things can get complex and
Right, so we don't bill insurance. It's all run through the counties. We'll bill the counties, and then because these programs are funded through the Medicaid and whatever else they're getting their money from, and then the county contracts out. So I've been the one who's been running that side of it as well. And we either bill the caseworker individually, or I've got a point of contact with each county that I send the bills through them, and they support it.
Works for you?
Works for me.
Okay.
Mhm.
You don't have a lot on the books? Or?
It's not, it hasn't been a problem. If they don't pay, they don't ride, and so it's actually been pretty simple. Mhm.
Have you been to the Horse Sense program then? Have you seen their facility?
I'm familiar with it, but I have not been there.
So it's not really large, but if I was gonna guess, it's maybe 50 by 100 or something like that?
At least.
At least 50 by 100, and they'll run like, I think, 3 or 4 horses at the same time, and they have a big ramp, like a wheelchair ramp, but it goes up to the side. But my granddaughter goes there, and she lives in La Crosse, and it's paid for through the county. I think it's like a special program. You hit it right in the head. It's the only thing she can do. She can go swimming if someone goes with her.
Right.
You and they have a pool at the house, but like when it comes to, if she knows she's gonna see the horse Tito at the end of the day, she's like great for that day and still happy the next day, and it's like and she's more interactive, she's nonverbal, but if anyone here would ever wanted to go see a facility like that, it's kinda neat to see, but I don't think they have a lot of other stuff there for the horses to stay and stuff like that. I don't know, it's kinda, and there's like an open, they ride sometimes outside, weather permitting, but it's cool all winter, they can ride inside.
It's very small.
Yeah, it's pretty small, but it's amazing. I was kinda skeptical at first, and my daughter's like, she's horseback riding, and I'm like, are you kidding? Sometimes she's in a wheelchair, she can't even walk. You know, she went there and she's just made huge gains, so, but it'd be worth it to go check that out.
Where was that at?
It's like
Bangor.
like
Yeah. It's
way
off
out,
of 14 and 16.
yeah, way out in the
coming out of-
middle of nowhere, you
Yep.
know. But it's really a cool program. I just have one question for Kurt, maybe. The site that they're talking about doing it, like water and sewer, stuff like that, is there anything out there already, or what would you?
If I was to take a guess at getting the water and sewer to the facility, it'd be less than 200,000, just off the cuff, which is pretty minimal.
Which location?
The CA, I would label it that. It's really probably the only location that comes to mind that the city currently owns that has fairly accessible water and sewer, and meets the acreage.
Is the land behind Milestone two wetlands?
I would anticipate that it would be difficult to put a building up there.
So, is that land out there, is it like, I'm not sure, maybe a dumb question, but that but-for clause for TIF districts, is it something that you have to, before this happens, we have to?
It's not currently in the TID, it would have to be amended and added if you wanted to use that as a resource. I don't think that I'm getting that feel that they're looking for, I don't think it'd be worth doing it for just the water and sewer for that cost. And that's really the only financial obligation or you know, what they've been asking for so far is really just the water and sewer and land, so.
So we've had this land for over 20 years or whatever. Do you foresee any use for it for the city?
Well, currently, good question. I mean, currently, we just talked about it last night, Richard asked. So we have struggled to find a use for it. It's zone industrial, so you know, you have a little bit of a hurdle with that. I don't think it's unreasonable that planning would turn it to designate for park conservancy. The direction we have right now is we would mine the hill, which is a obstacle right now for using it for a business to come in there. We kind of discussed, you know, now we have this option on the table. That hill almost becomes a little bit of a asset, because now you can maybe put some trails and whatnot in there. So, you know, we've started down one path, and we just have to figure out, you know, what we need to do with that. I think the biggest question, if I was a taxpayer, is that industrial land at some point, if we do get it to a point where we could develop it, what are we gonna lose for tax base over time? Really, that's what it comes down to. So, we've sat on it for 40 years now, you know, is it gonna be another 40? We don't know. You know, it just, those are the questions that we're struggling with. And I think that's why we specifically put on here discussion and presentation. We don't, the senior executive team doesn't feel that we have enough solid information to give you guys to make a decision tonight. I don't think anybody would agree that tonight would be a good night.
That was our feeling with the Parks Board too, when we brought it here, was there's a million questions to be answered.
Yep,
But you gotta start the ball somewhere.
Right.
exactly. You know, chicken before the egg.
Right.
It's,
And you need the egg before the chicken, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta have a leap of faith with both sides.
I would commit to agreeing, I think it's a great idea, because things like the hockey rink bring people in town for events on the weekends. There's other ways for income, not just taxes, and I mean, what I've seen it do for like personally for my family, maybe people live in a town like this where there's an activity like that available for autistic kids and stuff. Heck, we got a park, yeah, other stuff, you know, and it's kind of nice to have.
when we first talked about this, the feeling that we kind of had was, it's a great program.
Who didn't know, but that could be cleared.
I think the comment that I made was, if it becomes more of a multifunctional facility, that turns it into a great program. And I think they listened a little bit that way and tried to design it around that a little bit. So that was kind of our initial conversations and kind of how we're, getting to this point today.
So I think one of the important things, and Dave talked a lot about this morning at CDB, was it's a city, it becomes a city building once they're done making it, they dedicate it back, which means you could do things like high school rodeo or other event space to do other things that would bring people into the city. So when you see stuff in the proposal like the hotel stay or impact to restaurants, right? I think, I don't know what you said this morning, Dave, about the Saddle Club. But like the Saddle Club, it's kind of too small now to run straight up high school rodeo. Do you just want to kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm gonna back up before I forget this, because it's an important part that maybe wasn't emphasized. There were, early on, there were people like, well, why doesn't NASA just do this? And I said, well, NASA would love to do this, but it's in our bylaws that everything we provide has to be free. It's right on the front of our mission statement. So when you get to a facility like this, somebody's gonna have to charge, because you gotta feed the horses and pay the electric bills and all of that stuff. So we hit it, I told you we started about a year ago and we hit a dead end because we just thought, well, NASA can't do this. And then we went to Tour Breathe and found out that there was an avenue there. Even though they're a nonprofit, they can charge for their services. And so we can use our fundraising skills, and we're still gonna hold events there. We'll have to pay rent like everybody else, but that's okay. We will be providing whatever we do there free. And that was a big piece of the puzzle that I don't know if everybody understood. Well, where did these folks come from? But so I'm sorry again, I lost track of that. What were you asking?
So the idea being that because it would go back to the city, the other events that, since, like Lamont had the question that there's not a lot of people that are staying overnight because of the therapy piece, what were some of the events that you were envisioning?
Yeah, and I would say that, like, unless Breathe is running a weekend activity, which I don't think they do a whole lot of that.
They do take time off, huh?
Yeah, I think all of your weekends would be scheduled for rental possibilities. And whether, like I said, whether that's just simply an open ride for people who want to come and use the facility, or it's a scheduled conference or convention, or I know that Martha had mentioned, that's Martha there, she's a regional director, right, for PATH. And her area encompasses Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, and Canada, part of Canada. So they get together for their regional conference. These are all these folks from PATH, and they have a convention, and she said they'd love to do that here if we had a facility. So there's an opportunity, that's one of many. I saw that a lot of these city-owned facilities are renting them out for traveling shows like dog shows and rodeos and monster truck. And I know that the city or the school district said And I know Joe Protz mentioned too, they'd love to have the gymnastics facility in there. But again, that's gonna take more money, but it all depends on what, what we wanna do. Who all do we wanna bring to the table? And I think there's a lot of folks that can come to the table.
So,
I mentioned too, I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I was a volunteer for 30 years with the Boys and Girls Brigade, and they have an island over near Wapaka. And about 15 years ago, colleges and universities started getting a hold of them because all the kids started going back to school. So their summer camps were ended, and they have this island. It's a beautiful facility. And these colleges said, we need a place for team building activities to teach our new RAs who are freshly coming in to run an entire residence hall wing. We need a place to train them. So they started using the island, and as I said, they're completely booked and have a waiting list for people to come in and use it. Someone this morning mentioned River Falls. Was it you?
no, it was.
River Falls, UW River Falls has a program for equestrian therapy and program, and it was mentioned that they would love to partner with a facility like this to bring people down. So again, I think there'd be a huge potential to, I think you'll have a waiting list for people who want to use it on the weekends. I never even mentioned the outside facilities, either the outdoor rings and possibly, or did I, campgrounds and pavilions. But Joe had mentioned that the easiest way to take care of that would be to run a calendar, similar to what they already do for Rec Park. So I would see that, again, whether it's a facilities director that the city hires, or it's one that Breathe hires and they run the program, but you'd have a calendar that these groups could sign up for. And I would anticipate, much like the school district does, you have different rates. You have a rate for nonprofits, and you have a rate for for-profits. At least that's what Tomei School District does, so that it's a little more palatable to nonprofits to come in and use it, but for for-profits. And then they also ask questions like, are you charging admission and how much? And all of their fees are based on that. And again, it wouldn't be anything we'd have to create. I'm a firm believer, like Tina is you steal whatever you can from people who are already running those programs and use what works best for you.
I got two questions.
Yes.
One, would you think that this would be like, how like the hockey rink has like open skate? We kind of have like an open
run.
I think you definitely would, and the other thing is what Kurt mentioned about that particular facility. I would really envision there would not be very hard at all to have trails, and there's an investment property that owns 1,200 acres next to it that's basically vacant, and then there's another property that's between that property and the interstate that's vacant. And I know you could work out agreements with them to, put trails that they're pretty low impact. And if you had a system of trails out there, then you'd have folks who would, able-bodied anybody would come and say, we have 10 miles of trails right here. And they would pay to use that trail. And some of them would come and either camp or spend the night in town and ride if you had the ability, just like Wildcat Mountain, they have a place to do that.
So that was my second part of that question, was like, if the public could use the trails and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And then, my next question would be, is how, I guess, the setup with Breathe and the utilities and like, is the city responsible for utilities once it goes back to us? Are they, like, how does that?
Well, I would think that would be what your planning committee would have to, I put some operating guesstimates in there for heating and so forth. Cooling wouldn't be very big because you'd only probably do the classroom and bathrooms. You probably wouldn't do the barn or the arena. Heating would, you're gonna do the arena. But, so there's some estimates in there. And either that would be something that, Breathe is paying those things now, because I know this morning they asked, well, what about operating? How are you going to pay for operating the program? And I said, well, they're already doing it now. So they're just going to do it with a larger facility. And they don't have the additional weekend rental that we're talking about bringing in, and possibly even evenings. There's no reason why when they're done at 5, you can't rent it out till 9 o'clock at night or, you know, whatever. So I think that would come out of the rental. I don't see the city paying for utilities, especially as they're not terrible, those costs are. And those are based on some figures that Joe gave me for the recreation park, realizing there's 3 buildings there and this is only one, but it's a big one. So.
Kind of similar to the hockey rink, I would imagine, you know,
Yeah, because Tony's Hockey reimburses us for those.
for when they use it, I think, don't they, I think they pay the.
Well, they're in there, every month they're in there, they reimburse us for all utilities, right?
Correct.
Yep.
So.
Yes, sir.
Would there be a viewing area inside the indoor riding arena?
Would there be a what?
A viewing area?
A dueling area?
Viewing.
Oh, viewing, I'm sorry.
I like dueling.
I don't have my, yeah, let's have it. I was thinking jousting, you know? Get some Game of Thrones stuff going. Or Yellowstone, you know, we're gonna strike while Yellowstone's hot, so we'll have all kinds of money coming in. There is, from the classroom, and I do have, I mean, if anybody wants to see it, I'm a little embarrassed about that rough sketch. But from the classroom area, there would be large picture windows that you could view into the riding arena. And that would be, for when you're doing therapy, they definitely don't want the parents or spectators in the arena itself. But in talking with Rodeo, they're like, you might want to make that 100 feet wide because we want to get some bleachers inside there. You know, and that's part of what I want to keep my mind open enough, and I hope everybody is, that what we have right now really is a lump of clay that I think has huge potential to be a beautiful piece of art. But we need to get the people together who are going to want to use this and find out exactly what their needs are, because the outdoor arena will definitely need grandstands and bleachers if we're going to have the high school rodeo championship here, state championship, and they believe it'll come. So I guess Toma hosted it several years back.
We've had it.
Yeah.
You even had the national here once.
Well, that'd be all right too.
You did have them, I think it was
Did you?
74.
Yep,
Correct.
that's when the trailers were a whole lot littler though.
I mean, it sounds silly, but you could do anything. You could, maybe a monster truck thing would want to come in and use the arena. You just don't know what if you have that facility that can house that many people.
Your horse people are.
No monster trucks.
Any other questions for Dave?
I guess I would just end and leave you with this, and I'm not trying to pull on your emotional heartstrings or not, but I found it ironic that on Monday there was a new study that came out regarding high school or teenage girls. I don't know if any of you saw that or not, but the report said that 3 out of 5 out of 17,000 high school students surveyed, 3 out of 5 of them have reported record depression and persistent sadness. And so much so, and this is the worst it's been in over a decade. And the CDC had came out and said, our young people are telling us that there's a mental health crisis. In fact, 1 of 3 of those girls seriously considered suicide in the last year. And so, you know, my point is this not only takes care of physical needs, this facility would take care of mental needs for a whole lot of people. And why it may not check all the boxes, I think it's going to check a lot of boxes. And I think it'll help people in ways that hardly any of us in here, I mean, these folks might have the best idea, but I even think it's going to blow them away at the people that we're going to be able to help with this. So, again, I want to thank you so much for listening to us. I'm sorry we took up so much.
Have you talked with the VA? I mean, there's a potential pocket that.
VA would be huge. If I could speak to any of this.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, go Timmy.
I've worked as a public educator for 28 years, and I've been in Toma here for 21, and in all reality, this is the worst I have ever seen our community and our children. COVID did a really bad number on everyone's mental health, and our school district is currently failing, and we are desperate need of anything. We're in desperate need of anything for our youth to do. They got the roller rink, our theater is closed, and I talk to them on a daily basis about, you know, like what I do, and they are so interested. They're like, I will come out, I will clean stalls, I will do anything, and that's what they need to do. They need a healthy outlet. They need a healthy outlet, they need healthy adults around them, you know, guiding them. And if they're out there, you know, shoveling with a good conversation, it's gonna just turn everything around. And then those kids are gonna be working alongside of people who do have disabilities. We're gonna see empathy come back into our community, which we've lost. I have also run high school rodeo for years. My daughter was in it. She was extremely successful. We've been to nationals. She was actually the queen for a year. So I know a lot of people in the horse world. I know a lot of them have contacted me about this in regards to dealing with the veterans and Horses for Heroes and a lot of those national programs. I've taken a few classes in it. I'm not certified for that, but I definitely am willing to work towards that, to facilitate that. I know that the VA would be right there, and I know that we would have an awful lot of clients there. That would be taken through them. That would all be federal money, and they would deal with their own insurance that way. So that, I'm sure, would definitely be a very good steady income. I know a lot of people in the horse world, and I know that they would want to be running, you know, barrel bashes out there, and, you know, you have 200 barrel racers show up, and it's $200 a pop. That's an awful lot of money. That is weekend revenue, that is hotels, that is, you know, parking out there, because like when we go to Winona and we run barrel bashes out there, it goes, you know, all night, and there's not enough parking, so we are in, you know, hotels. So, I don't know, it could be very, very big.
I guess, I have one more question.
For me or her?
You probably.
Okay.
Would this be an added, maintenance issue for the inside and outside for the park?
There, I would foresee, I don't know if you would need a full-time person there like you have at Rec Park, because Rec Park's got 3 large structures, a lot of grounds, a lot of stuff to do. I can't speak to Joe whether that person could, you know, again, if that was in close proximity, maybe that could be incorporated into the duties that person already does. But I think you'd probably be looking at least somebody part-time to, because you're gonna have snow removal, you're probably gonna have some mowing. You know, there's gonna be some maintenance costs, which again, I think you would wanna cover in your rental so there isn't expenses to the city.
So on this, like, I guess, when someone rents it, I'm guessing horses mess up the dirt. Does it have to get raked?
I don't know, do you have to re-rake the dirt?
Like where?
Like inside.
Like
Well, yeah.
everywhere?
It gets leveled off.
Yeah.
So does the city have to do that every time it gets rented?
Make sure we're using the microphones, please.
Or does, I don't know. I'm just curious, like, every time it gets rented, if there's gonna be something that
Who
the
would
city
grade
of Toma
that?
has to.
Well,
take care
if
of.
we have our own tractor, skid steer, 4-wheeler, whatever you're gonna have there, you got a drag behind it, like, we take care of that.
Okay. I
We,
just-
we also, in the proposal too, is something called a barn manager. And we would propose a small housing unit for them, either above the barn or a separate little tiny house. And they would get a free stall for to board. And then they would take care of all the, you know, you could have duties as assigned, you know, you grade, you take care of the horses, and they receive a small monthly stipend. And we've talked, just very briefly, I'm gonna tell you, very few conversations, you guys, and I can't believe that people have already volunteered and said, I wanna be the barn manager. And I said, well, we're not paying you anything. And they're like, we don't care. If I got a place for my horse, and I can take care of horses, and I can live there, I don't need any money, you know? So, it's crazy. I did wanna say, whether intentional or not, and this is in the proposal, but I love this because I didn't realize this until I typed it up. Whether intentional or not, the city of Toma is branding itself. And you're branding itself as a place that welcomes people of all disabilities. You have a 5-mile walking accessible trail in and around your city, which is an awesome resource. It really is. There's a lot of cities that would love to have your walking trail, and it's accessible. You have an accessible park with a pontoon boat and a shelter and a playground. And if you build a horse arena, what is that? That's just gonna solidify this statement to everybody. And I put it in there, I researched, there is nobody claiming to be the first inclusive city in the United States. And I would like to see us do that and say, we welcome everybody. And I think it'd be a heck of a message. And then lastly, I would say, I don't mean to rush you, but there is a deadline for us that we'll miss for a year. And our annual banquet is March 25th. And I know you'll meet again before that. But we are gonna have 500 people packed into the rec building with their checkbooks. And that's the night they give us a lot of money. And if it be at all possible, I'd love to announce this proposal. And if it can't happen, I totally understand that too. But we will miss a year and have to, you know, kick it off in 2024. But just plant the seed there, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kirk, it leads me to the next question. So where are we at next steps?
Yeah, I think, you know, I kind of want to touch on what Mitch was getting at. There's a lot of questions, primarily around maybe the long-term maintenance, those things. And I think the only way to really pin that down is through that commission, committee that Dave talked about. Because you're going to get, it's going to change, and you know, the clay is going to turn into something throughout those meetings, and you're going to find out, you know, I can rent this out, you know, hopefully for this amount, and how's that going to impact, you know, operating. So it's somewhat of a leap of faith. I think it says a lot that they're operating now with what they have. So for us, a lot of questions. We really just kind of need to know which way the wind's blowing here with you guys, what it comes down to give us a little bit of direction to start spending time, you know, meetings, drawing up proposals, that type of thing. Before we get, you know, we don't want to start on that if this wasn't a great idea, you know, we're gonna find that out, hopefully tonight.
So I got a question. A, before our next meeting, could we maybe have a meetup out there and see what this property looks like? And B, can we use any room tax dollars to maintain this property?
So,
Like 0.5% or something?
meeting out there, obviously, we could. I think it might be better if we put it on the screens, and we can try to, we actually have a wetland delineation, you know, we can do some things like that. Hopefully get our engineer to maybe place the building on there.
We can go there on our own too.
Yeah.
Or with you, or
That's
whatever.
I'd be happy to meet you out there.
I'm sure you would, Dave.
Your other question was?
Room tax dollars.
So, just ran into this with our bonding that's coming up.
Okay.
Had a meeting with Quarles. They drew attention to the Hockey Association and them charging out there. Creates a little bit of a issue. It's not clear cut that we can, there'd be municipal tax-free bonds, I believe is what the direction would be. So I would just say in general, no. You know, that'd be the conservative approach to that answer. And they're really not asking for a huge financial, you know, outlay.
I wasn't talking about the actual building of it, I was talking about the maintenance of it.
And the rentals should take care of some of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say no.
Okay, and then we would be giving the rental.
Because in general, if you look at our budget, it's gonna fall under Parks and Rec. And you'd be robbing Peter to pay Paul, where you know you have a solid place to get the room tax and use it, just use it there, and then, you know, you'd have to absorb that.
Did Joe have anything on this either? Because this is kind of his department.
Well, I think, come up for a quick second, then move along. Well, like Dave said, you know, whatever the council kind of gives us direction, you know, sit down with a group of how it would operate. I look at it no different than a little, I mean, it's a bigger spectrum of it, but similar to Youth Soccer Association, they came to the city years ago, we had land at Veterans Park. They had a group saying, we're gonna run the program. The only expense to the city is we mow, some expense with the sprinkler system and stuff, but they run the volunteers, everything for Veterans Park. You know, cut the trees down, they put the field up. You look at it similar to this, depending on how we wanna shape the organization. You know, you talked about the maintenance, well, the hockey, they Zamboni, the ice, they do all that, they just pay utilities when they're in there. So it's a setup whether we have agreement with whoever as they're the occupancy and we just have agreement, you pay us utilities and you take care of everything. Or if this committee comes back and say we're doing half and half, or in Dave's proposal, you set up some sort of a board or volunteer group that oversees this facility. You know, that's the direction we could go to with representatives from Breathe, NASA, city, and try, I think, with everything, you try to get as much volunteers as you can. I mean, Toma Youth Soccer is all volunteers, and they fundraise to pay the refs and that. We don't pay for that out of the city. We just help maintain the facility as much as we can that we can afford.
Yep.
So, you know, I look at that quite a bigger spectrum, but I think, you know, we work towards that goal and see how it shapes up.
I guess my opinion is I think this would be a great asset for our park system. I think it's, you know, when Dave touched base on being an all abilities,
All abilities.
city, I like the idea of that. I can see that benefits from mental health and you know, someone with autism or someone that, like your granddaughter.
Autistic.
I like the idea personally.
So,
I think we would.
sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
I just said I think as a city it would be at least invest in or investigate it and see what we can do.
So, Kurt, from this body, then, would you want to see just like a poll of, should you continue the path of planning, starting to figure out kind of how this is all going to go together, or how we want to tackle it?
Yeah, I think just a poll vote really is.
Well, even though there, I think, you know, we kind of need to take a leap of faith. I mean, we don't want to spend a ton of time and start trying to dot every I and every T, when they might never even raise the money. You know, but we got to be able to make a commitment that if they do, we will give them the 31 acres and hold it for 2 years or whatever. And if they can't come up with it, then it just reverts back to where it was. You know, and I think we need to take the leap of faith to make that commitment and let them see what they can do.
Personally, I agree with you, Dean, and we, from set, we just don't want to make the decision fast, okay? I understand Dave's banquet, I'll be there volunteering, but it's just not how we operate, or we shouldn't operate.
Correct, we should not operate that way, no, too fast, too big.
And that's why I think just the polls, you know, straw poll will give us a good indication and we can start gathering data, but to, you know, to give that organization full commitment that, you know, you raise the funds and we'll do it, that, I think we're just not quite there, unfortunately.
Right, because this body doesn't make the policy, this body decides on policies that are given to us, and tonight we can't make a policy.
Right, well, we can't make a motion anyway because this isn't like regular general agenda stuff. This is, so we can do a poll, but we can't motion anything or do anything official. The last thing I wanted to hit, Shane, I saw at one point when we were talking about zoning that you popped your camera on for a sec. Is there anything that you wanted to add? Oh, do we not have volume?
We can't hear you. You are unmuted.
Yeah, he's unmuted.
I don't know, does it work?
No, I can see your lips when we don't hear anything.
Here. I'll just call him quick and.
You can hear us though.
You guys' number so you can call me in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I call him at 3 a.m.
Oh, an inside joke there.
It'd be funny if you saw him like hang up the call right away and just not take it.
Wow. Hey, you're on speaker. We can't hear you. Okay. Either way you wanna try, it doesn't matter. We can see you, just so you know. On my phone.
Put it up to the speaker.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can be there,
Go for it.
Try to talk.
So as if zoning goes, it would be much easier if that property was already dedicated park space. So the CA property is currently zoned industrial and it's city owned, so it would take a couple approvals from planning commission. They're the ones that are responsible for selling, leasing, buying any industrial property that the city owns. And they would actually have to do the rezoning the property also. So that's what I just wanted to mention. It's not that they can't do that, but it would require those approvals before any land can technically be dedicated.
All right, awesome. Any questions on that piece of it for Shane?
No, so, so for everyone, so there's several steps, that's why we can't just do this in a day, or 2 days, or 3 days, or whatever, this will take some time. Because we have to go through a meeting process, several meeting processes, it sounds like.
We can do a straw poll though, right, so we can keep
Yeah, to
moving
move
forward with the
Yeah,
plan?
so with all that information now, I think we're probably at a point, show of hands, who on council would be interested in seeing SET and the various committees kind of move forward and start taking this a little more seriously, so hands? All right,
I think it's unanimous.
yeah,
So it's unanimous. It's a good idea.
It's great.
Very
Is this something that we could possibly see something by next meeting?
I think there's so many other places it would have to go through. Planning would need to see the zoning bid. I gotta imagine Parks and Rec would probably they'd have to agree to take on potentially another park or whatever.
And scheduling and a huge.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces, but
Yeah, I don't wanna be the downer on this, but, somebody has to, like Dave said, we tug on the heartstrings. But we need to make sure that we're not getting into something that we can't sustain. Our budget is tight, you all know that. Taking on something like this, in the worst case scenario, where it just ends up with us, we have to look at those scenarios and make sure that we're being responsible and we can manage that long term if something goes south. So.
Right, because trying to coordinate this whole thing with all the, we want to bring in rodeos and we want to do all these things, but who's going to do all that? I mean, that's a huge administrative office type job, not grounds and mowing and our staff here in Parks and Recreation is not geared for a lot of administrative, from my personal observation.
And I think the proposal was great, and I don't think that we'll probably find any hurdles or issues that we can't overcome, but we just need to take that time. I don't know how many more times I can stress that, and that's what our purpose here is, and
so yeah, move forward, absolutely.
So does it have to get on like the planning commission agenda and stuff like that?
yeah, we had talked about that internally, and I think Shane would probably start that.
Shane's giving a thumbs up.
So, I think the idea of the committee, planning committee is a really good idea, as long as we can get people to participate, which doesn't sound like there'll be too much of an issue with that. I don't know if that's enough of a commitment for an organization to say that, this is potentially what's gonna happen, but, if we would possibly form that committee. Maybe that is some good PR informational that can be put out there and use as they wish.
Question for you, Kirk. That property off of 16 by the well, how many acres is on that back there by Toro?
What, 10?
Not enough for what they wanted, and wetland issues there too.
Yeah, wetland issues aren't necessarily an issue when it comes to riding and some of the outdoor facilities.
It would, yeah, and I guess what I meant by that is it would take enough of the land away to probably not work for that facility there. It's long strips and there's drainage ditches in between them. I just don't think it's configured quite right. But we haven't pursued all those options or looked at all those options, so can't say that for sure.
All right, any other questions on this? Comments?
I don't think the 16 probably would work.
Well, and that's something we could leave to the committee too, or whatever group comes from this to.
Who's gonna
Fair
set up
to say.
that committee?
I guess if that's included in the straw poll, we could, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe just work with Joel, Parks and Rec, because it's really kind of where it's gonna land, so.
It started there, and we as a committee
Instrumental.
brought it forward, thinking that it was a good idea.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of
I mean,
reality and eyes and.
yeah, I mean, there's so many questions, you know.
Exactly.
You could keep asking them all night, where we gotta go? Well, we gotta go to planning, we should go to Public Works, we should go to Parks and Rec again, you know, it's just. Get it going, I guess. It's-
Cross-functional committee.
Because then you gotta get the schools involved, the VA
Yeah.
involved,
Let's move on.
It'd be nice to have NASA and Breathe at the table too, but I think we're rehashing the same points. I think we're good here.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, to
Thanks,
Dave.
everyone. Thank you all very, very much.
Yeah, to Dave Nass and Breathe, thank you so much for presenting it. It's folks and organizations like yours that is the difference between a city and a community, and you all do great work and should be commended for it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so now that we've finished agenda item A,
I told you I didn't want to take a bite.
Yeah, thanks for keeping it short, Dave.
everybody else is down to 1 minute.
is there anyone else desiring to appear before council? All right then, next up is the mayoral report. Unfortunately, I am not the mayor, so the only thing I'll say is primary election next Tuesday for Supreme Court, right? So not a lot of people are going to be there. Go and vote. Give Becky something to do that day.
Vote really
Thanks.
counts, yeah?
That's right.
Thanks, Adam.
No problem. Moving on to the senior executive team, we'll go to agenda item number 2, senior executive team monthly report. Kirk.
Well, I can do it as my report to you, any questions, or I can go through a little bit. But do you have any questions? Pretty much focused on grant writing for sewer department, city for the EV charging units, and EPA. Thank you for the city attorney helping with that. Some updates on mass transit we had in there. If you read that, obviously supply chain issues. Now that we're able to get the vehicles, they cost more. Big surprise there. And the other one is survey and participation in some Wisconsin Farmers Market Association data. I did hear on the sewer department grant, there's 135 applicants looking for $42 million, and they're allocating $10 million. So should hear something hopefully in a couple months. I'm told that that's pretty good odds comparative to DOT funding, so we'll see.
Are we using that grant writing company, or is that something we're writing our?
That one we used, Strand Engineering. They typically do our electrical aspect.
Awesome. Any questions for executive team? Or did you get all questioned out by the first one?
All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. We'll move on to public safety for the public safety January monthly report. Chief.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Does anybody have any questions? You have my written report.
Very
I'm just gonna go over a couple bullet point items. If you got a question, let me know.
We didn't have any questions, Tom.
Okay, thank you. We had our DSPS audit, as I indicated. You've seen the letter we got back that we passed, so that all went well. The building's moving along. I really don't know what to tell you. It's on schedule, everything's going. There hasn't been any dollar changes. We just continue to improve things as the building goes. I'm in there sometimes 3 to 5 times a day, and we're just working through little quirks and making the best product at the end, so.
We can schedule to go through it with you sometime?
If you want
I haven't been through it.
give me a call and
Okay.
yeah, some days are bad, like
Yeah.
some days,
Right,
there's
you gotta
really
fit.
like, there's 50 people in there just about every day, and you can't even get into the hallway, so it would be kind of a day-to-day basis,
Yep.
but give me a holler. Just wanted to share with you that we had 2 situations where we used the UTV over the last month. One of them involved removing a injured snowmobiler off of a rural trail, so it worked very well. So thank you guys for helping us support that mission there.
And it's already in use?
Yes.
Several times?
Yep. EMS wise, we're down 1 full-time member. We're advertising. I got 1 applicant so far. We're gonna let that run through next Monday, and then we'll do some interviews. Hopefully we have more than 1, but we do have 1 qualified individual for that, so just wanted to keep you up to speed on that. There's always the question of transfers, so I was just gonna share with you for January numbers, if you didn't read the report. Toma ER, we were at 99.08%. Toma OB in acute care, 100%. Toma VA, 100%. Critical care, 100%. So again, we're doing our best. There was some transfers that we didn't get out, and the transfers we didn't get out were all the outlying hospitals. Once again, Black River Falls or Viroqua or Mount Vernon, Adams Friendship, things like that. So when we have the ability to take those, we take them, but those are the ones that we deny. So other than that, that's all I'm gonna speak of tonight, so. Anybody have any questions?
Well, good job on the transfers, yeah. Keep the local, keep all our locals going, and, yeah, so outside hospital to outside hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next we'll move to the library, Miss Irma.
Take one, pass them down.
Can do.
Okay, so very quickly today, we have January ebook checkouts, 2021 physical checkouts, 4,496, giving us a total of 6,517 items checked out from the library or to the library. Reminder that we are still running hot reads for cold nights. That goes until March 31st. Whenever you come in, you check out, you get your name entered into a drawing, and those are gift cards from local businesses. I have given you a new thing. We're trying a new thing now where I'm giving you the books. So instead of telling you about the books, I'm giving you the books. So kind of a little synopsis of what the new books are about. I bring your attention to Librarian Spy. I say no more. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
None for you too.
Great job.
I'm making it short. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a
Thank you
book
very
for
much.
you, Irma, after I ordered it.
Did you?
Yeah, you always give us stuff. So.
Is it a Librarian Spy?
Pardon?
Is it the Librarian Spy? No? Okay.
No?
Librarian
All
Spy 2. All right, we'll move on to Parks and Rec for agenda item 4, Toma Parks and Recreation Program Report.
I guess, any questions?
You're taking it over.
What's that?
There should be some questions. I don't have them myself.
How was the Freeze Fest stuff go?
Pretty good. Sold out of the buttons this year, so it's moving in the right direction. We had some nice programs, so senior center, library, different groups around the community, so different businesses stepped up to have deals, so I think that helps sell tickets. I mean, buttons, and then obviously the medallion hunt, people like doing that, so I thank the Chamber for sponsoring that, and Rotary, so we had a good year for Freeze Fest, and just pretty much big ticket items. We're finalizing bid documents. Early April, we'll hopefully have the bids back for the two big projects we've been working on with Flair Avenue Ball Fields and the Ice Center addition, so April will be, hopefully we'll present to the council some final numbers, and hopefully they'll come in good, and we can get those babies going here. We've been waiting on those for a few years, so get those projects moving. Winnebago's still at rest, so hopefully, May 1st is what the contractors told me, that project should be done, so knock on wood, let's hope May 1st is the date, so we're ready to go for our summer months there and get that place cleaned up after all the winter activities there. We got some work to do. It was money when we finished it, so bear with us this spring. And other than that,
Stay out
of the mud. Recreation Park, can see all the activities coming up the next couple months, and just plugging away. So, questions or concerns?
Do we know when we'll hear if the hockey team, that youth hockey, is trying to bring it in?
They're still, last I heard, they're still close, but they're just waiting for the final approvals or contracts with the group, so.
Awesome.
Still on the books, I guess, so I haven't heard finalization, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
Moving on to Senior and Disabled Services, we have agenda item 5, Senior and Disabled Services Department Monthly Report. Pam.
Hi, should I come up instead of say, any questions? Should I say sit back and relax for the next half hour?
Go ahead.
No. I want to say, though, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I know it's been said, but in January we had 1,380 attendees, and last year it was 856. Big difference. I just wanted to share that. It was a calendar and 7.5-page report in your packet, so the public knows that I did do a good report. There are a couple things that are not in there that are happening before your next council meeting. On Tuesday the 8th and Thursday the 16th of next month, before your meeting, there's going to be a presentation, the school referendum, twice at the senior center from 12:30 to 1 on those days. And anyone can come and ask questions and find out so that they can figure out how they want to vote. And then on Wednesday, the 22nd of March, from 4 to 5:30, is Take the Mystery Out of Medicare, which is really important to people who are just retiring or going to go on Medicare. And Alice is very good and very knowledgeable. So I wanted...
History right out of it, huh?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry right now.
I got a few years ago before I need to go there for that.
So those are two things that are not in the report that I wanted to highlight. And one thing that's in the report that I really wanted to highlight is on Thursdays from there's 3 appointment times starting at 11 and ending at 2 for tax assist that is in Toma at the senior center. Any questions?
You have a new craft program starting, correct?
A new craft
program or basket weaving?
Basket weaving classes tomorrow. She only wanted up to 12 people, and as of today, there were 15 people who wanted to be in it, so we had to cut it off at 12. So I think we'll have another basket weaving class in March. They're just a standalone one class, and so the one this month is filled. And
Just
that's
for one
tomorrow.
day, it's not an ongoing.
It's a 4-hour class, and last month we offered it and nobody, and this month we went over the numbers, so we think that there might be one next month also.
Any leads on renting the building?
Pardon?
Any leads on renting the building?
I just toured, a week or two ago, toured a business, and they looked at both the Phillips, and we went into Morgan Stanley too. They would want us to split the Phillips building because they don't need quite that much room, but they wanted a little more than what Morgan Stanley is. So I'm not sure where that's gonna go.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to planning and building inspection. We have agenda item 6, the January building permit report and annual building permit report. We'll see where we're at. If we've got Shane.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me now?
Hey, that's perfect.
All right. Yeah, and this is actually a good look at from last night's meeting too. We,
Oh, sorry, I put it on both
Nope.
meetings accidentally.
We have no, I have no questions.
No.
Any questions for Shane?
Moving on.
And you got your mic working and everything just now.
Gotta go old school.
Good job.
All right.
We can skip the next one too.
I think you're good to go, Shane. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last.
Just kidding. We'll make this very quick. We did have our CVB meeting this morning. As we kind of stated, we did decide to formally support the NASA project moving forward in any way that we can. We are currently working on our compilation, so a lot of correcting numbers and figuring out the splits of all of our finances for the year, so that's taking up quite a bit of my time. Our annual banquet is the last Monday of this month, coming up very soon. I know Kirk has worked with reserving your spots. We're looking at ways to sponsor some more tourism-based events and to create a more focus on some of our content development. The last thing I had, and again, I'll be working with Kirk on this, is I'm still displaced from my office. There's been several issues we found in the ceiling of my office in particular that we have to get corrected. Currently, we are putting drywall back up, so I think all the major issues are done. We didn't have a loss of any of our equipment, but there will be a fiscal impact of, I don't know how much yet. I only have one bill, but a little bit of money that we'll have to do to get the repairs completed.
So the plastic sheeting wasn't an intentional design choice.
If you've ever seen Dexter, that's what my office looks like right now. So I appreciate those that understood the reference. Thank you. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you. All right then, we will move on to the consent portion, or the consent agenda portion here. I would appreciate. Give me a second, Mitch.
Oh, sorry.
I would appreciate a motion approving the following. Secondhand article dealer license application for Sunshine Resale of Toma. Special event outdoor cabaret license for the Greater Toma Area Chamber of Commerce for the 800 and 900 blocks of Superior Avenue for 6 downtown Thursday nights concert events in July and August of 2023. Special beer application by Families First of Monroe County Trivia Night on March 11th, 2023. Special beer and wine permit application by Toma Baseball Club Incorporated, opening night on March 4, 2023. Special beer permit application for the Toma Lions Club for downtown Thursday nights in July and August of 2023. January 31st, 2023 cash and investments report, and the approval of minutes from January 17th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Shauna and a second by Dean. Any discussion?
Aye.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain. So motion passes with one abstention. Moving on to the Committee of the Whole recommendations, we have agenda item number 8, the ordinance revising ordinance section 38, streets, sidewalks, and other public places. So I see second reading and adoptions on here. Are we going?
Move to approve as amended last night.
We're looking for waiving the second verbatim reading and then to adopt.
Okay, so is there a motion to waive the, well, so if we do the verbatim reading, does that still include the change, the grammar?
With you, I move to approve with the
Put it in there,
amendment
okay.
last night.
All right.
Second.
So that was a motion and a second to waive the second verbatim reading of the ordinance revising ordinance section 38, street sidewalks and other public places, but containing the,
I have it in the minutes with the removal of the redundant wording shall keep.
all right, fantastic.
That sound right?
All right, so that was a motion by Richard and a second by Lamont. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would appreciate a motion for the adoption of the ordinance revising ordinance section 38, streets, sidewalks, and other public places.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Got a motion by Lamont and a second by Richard. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to agenda number 9, resolution for payment of monthly bills.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Sean and a second by Lamont. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Any opposed? I got a motion by Mitch, do we have a second? I got a second by Dean to adjourn.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? As of 8:15, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for running the meetings, Ira.
Is that Peterson and Kayla or Kayla and Peterson?
It doesn't